Buongiorno, everybody. It is morning here in New York State, and I've been wanting to make this video for a few days now, finally getting the chance. I was inspired last week by my dear friend and co-collaborator and co-conspirator, Mary Beth Bonfilio. I was inspired by her stories last week and other conversations I've been engaged in most recently with my community and the work that I've been doing for pretty much my whole entire life around connection and this idea of connection and our loss or our disconnect. And I just want to say that that's real, that the disconnect that we feel and sense is real, but that there is a different position that we can take in relationship to it, in that we are not disconnected, but that we no longer, that we have lost, largely lost. We may experience it from time to time, but that we have lost our ongoing coherence, our ongoing awareness of our connection. See, we really can't be disconnected. And when we're talking about connection, what are we connecting to? Well, we're connecting to our big self in Jungian terms, the archetypal fields of experience. Rupert Sheldrake called it morphogenic fields. Some people call it God. Some people call it the divine or creation. And our ancestral traditions are beautiful places to look for this, which is one of the things that I've done and part of what my work is about, because part of our loss has been our movement away from our ancestral traditions and our loss of those traditions and the skills and rituals that we would have been immersed in traditional cultures, in any indigenous culture anywhere, that would have given us the means to facilitate the awareness of our connection and to be able to understand that connection in mind, body, and spirit. So this includes our somatic, our felt experience of being in contact and in coherent resonance with those realms of being, those dimensions of experience. We can't be disconnected from those. We can only really be disconnected from our awareness of it, because we are those fields. We are the divine or the archetypal realms in a dense form. So our conditioning has us thinking about things in yes, no, right, wrong, left, right, male, female, right, feminine, masculine. But we know that the truth of it isn't that divided, isn't binary, isn't polar. Those are just ways that we describe it. But the truth of it is that matter, including our bodies, and everything that we see, is just a denser form of the truth. The ethers. It's a spectral condition of density, of taking those energetic forces and creating form out of them. And that's who we are. So we are like, as individuals, waves on the sea, right? We are the waves. So I just wanted to share that today. And that this it's not like you can push a button and just go, oh, I'm connected. I realize I'm connected, right? The cognitive awareness of that, or me saying this to you and you saying, oh, that rings true, or yeah, I know this in some way. It doesn't just automatically turn on, not for me anyway, and most people I work with. It's a process. And it's because to get here, there was many things that occurred, right? It's like there's many different creative projects, right? That were generated and in sort of woven, right? It's like, or spun, like we're all spun to where we are right now. And it's not like you just all of a sudden go back and realize you're part of the ocean. We have to relearn it. We have to re-practice it. And knowing that there's no going back to our traditional. It's like, I'm not going to go back 5,000 years ago and all of a sudden be in coherence, right? We have to regenerate it with the conditions that we have right now. The reason, or part of the reason for ancestral remembrance, ancestral reclamation, or any of the various methods that we have of forming that connection or creating that connection, are really ways for us to know where we're going. So for instance, going back to my ancestral homelands gave me the experience, the felt somatic experience of being in place that feels very different depending on the place. And by feels, I mean in my body, the difference between holding a rock and a feather. Feeling what it's like to be somewhere where you have ancestors for thousands of years. And feeling the difference between that and being where I was born. And not in a bad or good, but just knowing that sense of being in different relationship to things is how we determine how we want to be in relationship with things going forward. I learned this in a few ways over time in my body via gymnastics as a kid, certainly yoga, and doing work with a mentor of mine, doing hypnosis and dream work over many years, breath work, and most recently hooping, right? Hooping is a practice of mine. And one of the things I learned is, so if I wanted to, when I was learning to move the hoop up from my hips to being able to hoop around my chest, I first learned to hoop around my chest, because if you don't know where you're going, you're not going to be able to get there. And so I had to learn what it felt like to have the hoop up here and then go from my hips up. And so when we're doing ancestral work, or we're doing anything, plant work, anything, where we're seeking that connection now, we need to have some point of reference. My mentor that I mentioned used to call it God's carrots. Right? It's like the little things along the way that light you up. Those are the things that say, this is the way. This is what it feels like. Now, then you go back. It's like, okay, well, I'm here now. I want to feel that. What do I have to do to do that? But if you don't know where you're going, you can't get there. And so when we talk about the reclamation of our ancestral practices, right, it's not because we think we're going to go back to being in our ancestral villages and everything's going to be perfect. It's because we need to remember that those feelings of cultural coherence with ourselves, with the divine, and with each other, so that we can start regenerating, so that we know where we're going. So, yeah, we're all connected. Bye for now.